great to meet you. I've really enjoyed the album. I played it on the show, so I'm looking forward to getting into it.
All right. What do you want to know?
Well, I'm going to begin with this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was changing our lives, creating so many different scenarios, especially for musicians. How did you get through that era, and how did it influence either the way you made this album or the way that you live life today?
That's a great question. So there are several factors here. My backstory is I've been a high school chemistry teacher. And
Yeah.
so through the pandemic, we were teaching online and then going back into school. And I started to have trouble with my voice. And so I sought help for that. And in so doing, was directed to a vocalist named Heidi Schmidt to work with. And she taught me how to correctly use my speaking voice by singing. So that was huge. And then during COVID, the Colorado Conservatory for the Jazz Arts was conducting adult learning. And the way we managed it during COVID was in my driveway. We met with the rhythm section in the garage with masks on and in the horns and voice outside on the driveway, weather allowing, which mostly in Colorado it did. And I was downwind from everyone else, so that because the research, the civil engineering research showed us which instruments were most likely to project particles that could carry COVID. And we were all 8 to 10 feet apart from each other. And during that, we had a mentor named Brad Good, who teaches here at the University of
Yeah.
Colorado. He's a trumpet player, but also a bassist and a drummer. He knows all the instruments and
Yeah.
how to teach them all. So he was our mentor through that. So we did 2 nights a week, and then 2 nights the next week, and then a concert. And so we had music in the neighborhood. We had music all through that first summer of COVID and into the fall. And then by then, people were starting to get a handle on things, and we went to an indoor venue, and they allowed us to rehearse there, and we kept going all the way through. But that was my silver lining, because in addition to being able to have CCJA, Colorado Conservatory for the Jazz Arts, concerts and classes, Brad Good had friends like Cyril Aimee and Dave Kakowski and Ernie Watts, who were kind of still moving around the country, especially into 2021. And they did concerts on my driveway. So I was lucky. I had silver linings.
That's what a
Yeah,
great
it was great.
story.
And great for the neighborhood and great for the musicians because people were just anxious to get out and do things. So they would bring their lawn chairs and sit on the lawn and get music. And then the musicians would get tips. You know, they weren't getting much income. And so it served everybody.
We had a series of shows called Plex Pod shows in Kansas City where there was a big parking lot and everybody would park and they would open up their back gate and they were all, they were on stage, and it was Bobby Watson did the first one, and then there were successive ones, but it was that same idea that, we're not going to stop living. We just need to find a way to accommodate.
And that's what jazz is. I think, in my opinion, based on my relatively short amount of time in this music, is it's all about community and people coming together to make something better and beautiful. And I don't know if other art forms do that in the same collaborative, everybody is welcome kind of way, at least in the Denver scene.
Well, I think too, my brain's going back. I did more interviews during that COVID time than I ever did before. And I remember talking to all the musicians about of any artistic genre of music, jazz is always thrown into the unknown and you do it once. And that's kind of the way life is. So the whole idea of COVID was getting thrown into this unknown and making the best out of the situation. And jazz musicians have to natively do that anyways in their creative process.
And we were
So.
fortunate to have venues that were in on it too. I know New York City venues did that because I had access to that virtually. But yeah, it was about the venues seeing the sense of community and the need for that too. That Dazzle was running a food bank. People could drop things off for musicians who were short of materials, kind of like what's going on in the world right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
which we'll get into that. Being a
Okay.
musician, I want to tap into that, but I want to get into your album, Talking to Myself. And you've had an
Okay.
interesting ride in this life. Talk to me about this album. What was kind of the vision? How did this happen?
All right. So I've been doing the classes, and Brad Good took me kind of on he was my mentor. I learned how to sing from a trumpet player, and I know that's highly unusual. And then I did go to jazz camps which I really feel like that's part of my mission is to make sure everybody at whatever stage of life sees a pathway to making their dreams come true. I went to Centrum Port Townsend jazz camps and got to learn from Roberta Gambarini, Renee Marie, Sasha Vasandani, J.D. Walter. And then I've gone to Tritone Jazz Camp in Rochester, New York, and got to work with Darman Meter and Amy London. And so I just want to make sure that everyone understands that I didn't forge this path. I was just good at research and found resources that I needed to move along. So along with that and jamming with Brad Good, I would go to him regularly and say, what's my blind spot? What do you think is the next thing I need to push myself on? And he always had a response to that because he's a brilliant man and watches everything. And so he said, you need to make a record. And then I remembered a couple years before that, I was at Abersold camp. And Don Braden was joking with me. He's like, you're going to make your next record. You're going to make a record in the next 2 years, and I want to be on it. And I thought he was just like joking, like I wasn't going to make a record. But the more I thought about it, I took a break from teaching. I'm on a leave of absence, a personal leave of absence to hold a position for me. And I thought my curriculum really is to do the best possible thing that I can do. And it seems like making a record is a way to learn what my voice sounds like. As vocalists, we are always at the mercy of a sound engineer.
Yeah.
That is our voice in any venue. And I really didn't know what I sounded like because I'd only sung in venues where the sound engineer decided what I was going to sound like. And then I would get recordings on my cell phone and they weren't great. I had no idea what I sounded like. So I thought, okay, this is money well spent. So we went into the studio just to experiment and see what would happen. And then we just took it one step at a time. And on the way home from the final mixing, and we had the master, Brad just lives a mile from me. We were listening and sharing a ride to the album. And he said, this is really good. We should release it. Don't just, mess around with it. Don't just put it on Facebook. I think we need to really release this album. And that was the moment and the listening to the final product that I finally understood what the difference is between live performance and recording allows for a vocalist, at least, to really hear what's possible in their own voice. And I just took Brad's advice and we got hold of Mark Reaney at Groove Marketing, and he accepted the project. And then it just sort of took off from there. And so I'm really proud of the work we did. But it's the concept for the album for me as I went in is that I'm working with these masterful musicians, right? I had Eric Gunnison on piano. Eric Gunnison toured with Carmen McRae, and so did my bass player, Mark Simon. So, and then Harold Summey toured with Sonny Rollins,
Yeah.
right? So I was working with like world-class musicians. So I thought I don't need to outshine anything that they're doing. And then this concept of every instrumental musician says that they have the lyric to a jazz standard running through their head while they're playing. I wanted to be that voice. I wanted to just let what was going through their heads just come out. So I chose a really simple approach, and Brad agreed with me that as my producer on the album, that was a really good way for me to lay down my first album. So it's talking to myself was really this idea of how instrumental musicians hear the lyrics in their heads.
So take me back to your beginnings. I know you come from being a science teacher. What were the kind of the beginnings, the seeds of music and getting to this point in your life? How did all of this start, stop, and come to where we're at today?
All right. So I come from a family where music was valued and we were required to be in music in school, but there was no money for private lessons for anything. So it never seemed like a track for any of us in my family. I have 3 siblings besides myself to ever pursue an arts career, but there wasn't even money for lessons. So I was in high school, middle school and high school choir. I was in middle school and high school band as a French horn player. And they said things like, oh, you have talent, which I didn't know what that meant and knew it didn't mean anything to me because I was always fourth chair because I wasn't taking private lessons like the wealthy kids I was sitting next to. And then church, my dad was a minister. And so we were always, in the church choir and singing as a family on certain occasions. And church music, though, not jazz, but we did have some jazz playing in the house. And then I kind of stepped away from it, except for just singing in the shower and singing in the car, like everybody does, you know?
Mhm.
And so it never occurred to me to be a vocalist, but several things came together. At one point in about 2018, I started to, like I said, lose my speaking voice in the classroom. They hadn't gotten us microphones yet, which we now have. So I was straining my voice and got help from Heidi Schmidt, but at the same time, my friend Claire Church, who was the band director at my high school, who was a killing saxophone player. She toured with Natalie Cole. Like she was a killing player when she was younger and then decided to settle down and become a high school teacher and still was playing. She decided with her husband, Pete Lewis, who's also an accomplished saxophone player, to open a venue called the Muse Performance Space, which is very nearby. So these retiring teachers were opening a space for musicians by musicians, not for profit. So I started going there and jamming a little. Brad ran those jams and came up to me and said, are you a musician? I said, I sing a little. He said, get up and do something. So, I'll come back in 2 weeks and I'll sing a song. And then I did. And he encouraged me because apparently he heard something. And then I just went back every week and did 2 or 3 songs. Until then, eventually my friends convinced me to go to Abersold. And then, of course, my learning took off by jazz camps. And then CCJA, Colorado Conservatory for Jazz Arts, started offering adult education. So I am completely a person who was in the right place at the right time. But I think that if your eyes aren't open, you don't see opportunities. And I was looking, I still am looking for what's my next learning opportunity. So I think that the message of me as an ambassador of living your dreams and being a lifelong learner is to keep your eyes open and try to find the opportunities. I'm also fortunate that I have, saved money. I'm, not a young person. I'm an older person who's got savings, so I could spend money on these camps. But if you can find the camp that matches the thing you're passionate about, whether it's singing or painting or welding, whatever your thing is, there's probably an adult track opportunity to learn.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. What was the first live show, jazz or otherwise, that you saw that blew you away, that made you think, I
Oh.
either want more of this or I want to do that one day?
So I knew I was a jazz head. The first concert I ever went to ever was a Chuck Mangione concert. I'm from Syracuse originally, and we were sophomores in high school. We're like, yeah, you got a car? Oh, we can drive. Oh, let's go to this jazz concert. So we were definitely not the coolest kids in the school, but we were very committed to that music right from the get-go, and we had access to it. Syracuse, New York has a free jazz festival every summer. And I remember seeing Diana Krall for free. There was no charge to go to this jazz festival and thinking, oh, that is amazing. Who is she? And, digging into that. And then, we choose to listen to what we love. And I can't say it really never occurred to me to get on a stage and sing into a microphone ever until Brad Good invited me at a jam that I went to just to support the venue. Never occurred to me.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah. So, and Brad's wonderful. I've had him on the show and he's so talented. So,
Yeah.
what's been the difference between this idea of releasing music to the world and performing it's kind of an ideological dream and then it actually happening? What's the difference between the dream of wanting to do it and the actual reality of you doing it?
Okay, so the dream was just to scientifically investigate it. I wanted to understand, how does recording happen? How does it, who lays down what when? What's the producer's job? Like I was just following my curiosity. So I don't know if it was like a dream because I had no idea what was possible. I really didn't I I had no idea what was possible. It was really reconnaissance work going into the studio for the first time. But then we went in for the first time and I heard the roughs and thought, okay, I know I can do better. So we went into mix. I did overdub. And the beauty for somebody who's trying to figure out who they are is the opportunity to overdub. Yeah, it costs more money because it takes more time. But as a beginner, to be able to access that and then work with Colin Bricker at Mighty Fine Productions, our studio we went to, and talk about it and then play with things and what if we do it this way and then work on phrasing. It was expensive, but less expensive than going paying tuition for jazz school. Way less expensive than that. So to me, I thought of it as tuition to do the kind of learning that I got to do in the studio that you can never do on stage or even in a jam session. It was with mentors and experts to really discover what I could do in a really important, boots on the ground kind of way, as opposed to the theory kids learn in college. So I do. I think of recording as paying tuition.
So, what do you like the best about being a musician, about being on stage, releasing albums? What's the best part of this process?
Those are different questions. Being
Which
on
one?
stage as a singer,
Yeah,
because I'm generally kind of a shy person and I'm not, I don't know, like in a faculty meeting or something, I wouldn't be the one who is like talking.
yeah,
But when you're on stage as a performer, first of all, it's not high school kids who don't want to be there teaching them chemistry that they don't want to learn. So the revelation that I could be in front of people and they want to hear me, they paid to hear me, is the most uplifting transition of my life compared to teaching high school kids. And people ask me if I get stage fright, and I'm like, no, I'm used to teaching high school kids who are like this, rolling their eyes when I'm talking. And now I've got people nodding and smiling and want to hear what I'm delivering. So I think that's probably personally, emotionally, like gratifying. Then I love creating. I'm playing with people who are handing me ideas and teaching me in the moment still because I have so much to learn. And I am a dopamine addict. I love to learn and I am learning something all the time on the bandstand anytime, jamming or in performance in a, programmed event. So, yeah. Then the recording piece, the gratifying part is just turning out something that I can really, really proud of. I have a son, I can leave it to him. We made physical copies because my husband insisted. And at the time, before I understood how this was going to go, I'm just like, why do we need CDs? Are we going to give them away at my funeral? Like, what do we need these for? And they're almost gone. So
yeah,
apparently that's a thing. People want to listen to this over and over again, and I'm astonished and delighted, and most delighted because these friends of mine on this album with me are getting heard in a different context by different people.
yeah. So, what was it about being in the world of education for a while that has enhanced your your potency as a singer, as an artist? Did that world help you? Did that lead and lend you to where you're at today? Was there anything corollary?
Well, I think in terms of being a leader, I've really quickly jumped into a band leader role, which I think a lot of singers, especially starting out at my age, might be intimidated by. But I've been a classroom leader. I've been in charge of the emotional experience of 35, 37 kids at a time, 5 times a day. So my stamina for leadership and my stamina for guiding people emotionally is really honed. And then I bring, starting at this age, and I think, Sheila Jordan was sort of like a guide for my mentality, and Renee Marie too, of doing this older. I've got wisdom. There's gravitas to the kinds of stories I'm able to tell the truth about and testify to because of things I've seen and places I've been as a teacher and as a human being in general. But teaching has completely informed the kinds of stories that I want to tell and parenthood in a similar way.
Yeah. So, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one performance, one singer, anything in the jazz canon, where would you go?
Betty Carter in a heartbeat.
Okay, okay.
In a heartbeat. She is a musician's musician, which is, I'm a kind of like a smart singer. Like I want to be thoughtful and intelligent about my choices and bring all kinds of knowledge of the music, but also of storytelling and band leading. And she is the quintessential band leader, vocalist,
Yeah.
an improviser, and revolutionary. She was amazing. And if I could lead a band at that level, that would be the ultimate dream for me. Yeah, there's people with wonderful voices, but my voice is my voice. And I think every vocalist has to confront that. The voice you have is the voice you have. You can tweak things and develop and grow, but, I'm not going to have one of those rich, Sarah Vaughan. I'm not. But there are things I can learn to do. And I feel like Betty Carter, as an example of things that are learnable, is a great guide for a vocalist.
So, why do you love this art form we call jazz?
I just always did, and I don't know the reason, but intellectually it came to me. Damani Phillips wrote a book called What Is This Thing Called Soul? I don't know if you've seen it. It's kind of a scholarly piece that he wrote as part of his doctoral work. And the thing that stood out to me, because it's hard to get a definition of jazz, but the idea that this music comes from the Black American experience in church. And if we think about church as a place to testify, and that everyone, no matter what voice they are born with, what skill set they have, deserves to be heard, and what comes out of them needs to be the truth. This idea of it's not cool to mimic anyone else. It's not cool transcribing's okay, but you're not supposed to sound like anyone but yourself, 100% yourself, honestly. That I think when I was younger, I couldn't have done. I didn't know myself very well, And as an older person coming into this music who really is beginning at this age to know myself, that this is the place to put it. And that it's not just an invitation, it's an expectation
Yeah.
that I really appreciate about this art form. The other piece about this art form is that there's no small talk. There's not like, hey, how are you doing? How's the weather? That's not where we stick. We're not talking about sports. I can't do that. We go in, we decide a song, and then we communicate using music. And as a kind of introverted person who likes one-on-one conversations, that's a great way to be part of something social that has also got these, rules and freedoms that I deeply appreciate.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand, everyone that's known you in an educational realm, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am an intelligent, motivated, curious. I think curiosity is probably my driving characteristic. Every day I wake up curious, like, what is it? What is it? What's the thing today? Who isn't afraid.
Yeah.
I'm not a fearful person.
Yeah.
There are times when, I feel that wave come up over me, but I'm pretty weirdly, maybe stupidly. I don't know if the word is brave or just stupid. I don't know because I'll just try anything anyone says to do musically. I'm not afraid of failing
Yeah.
because I know you got to make a bunch of mistakes to learn. So that is the grounding thing is that no one's going to die if I sing a wrong note, you know?
Yep.
So curiosity and fearlessness is what I've arrived at. And I wasn't like this when I was younger. I was curious, but totally afraid of making a mistake. I had to be perfect. I had to be a people pleaser. And I've gotten to the point where I realize I'm not going to please everyone.
Yep.
I'm just not. And so the people that gravitate toward this kind of honesty are going to gravitate to me, and the other people are going to go find another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's you got the true heart of an entrepreneur there for sure. That's the gist. So if anyone wants to catch you live, they want to pick up a copy of the album, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
Right. So I'll just say that I've got a website. It's catellisarts.com.
Okay.
And it's named that because I'm also a painter. So there's two sides to my website, the music side and the painting side. catellisarts.com. And then streaming the album, I brought a copy in case you want me to show it. It
Yes,
looks
please
like
do.
this.
Yes.
So it's, if you search Kat Ellis, you're going to come up with so many hits. So you're looking for Kat Ellis Ensemble, and that is intentional because it's not about me. It's about how I fit in with these other musicians who are just amazing mentors, amazing friends, and create a space of beauty for me to land in and express stories.
I love it.
So, yeah.
I will put all of that in the show notes. This has been wonderful. Kat, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with the release. I appreciate it.
It's great to meet you. Thanks so much.
You bet. And before